Welcome. This is an overview of Brimbox. Brimbox is a database program. We call it a web database interface built a lot like a content management system. We get to the Brimbox, and what would we expect for a database? You have a hard login. It's a pretty secure login, and we log in, and we get what we call the main interface or the default interface. And of course, you can build different interfaces. Brimbox is a framework, but this is the default interface and default styling. And we see that what we have here are tabs. And each one of these tabs corresponds to an underlying module, which would be a lot like a template in a content management system. So each one of these tabs goes to an underlying module, and in the setup and admin tabs, which are only available to super users and admins, and I've logged in as an admin, you see the modules are along the right side, the left side here. So we're going to go back and we're going to go through the standard from here, from home to report. And the report is something that's customizable. We have the tabs that would be generally available to users, and we're going to go through them and talk how that works. So we deal with from browse to cascade. Those are tabs are for viewing and browsing data. And if we go in here and we go in, we have an alphabetical browse, so I'm going to pick that as C. We have a lookup browse, which works on the data fields, and I'm just going to put an A there, and we get all the records with names that start with A. We have search, which is like a Google-like tab. It's like almost a Google style search of the database. It just rips through the data. View is for drilling down. So if we want to drill down into an expenses, we can drill down and we can see child records, because Brimbox is set up for quick relational database deployment. Details are something that I'm going to go here. So if we go to details, it lists the details, and cascade is a little bit different. It's for cascading data. So if we want to look at all the data in a record and all the data underneath it, all the child records. So it starts with a parent, looks at all the child records underneath it. Now, what we've done here is we've gone through a bunch of different records. So I've cascaded Bambi, but if we go back, we find here, this is still at Bambi, and we go back again, and we find that it's at Carla, the browse tab is, and if we go back even farther than that, we find that we have Bambi again in the details. So if we use the back button, it goes right back to where it was. And also if we use the tab, it goes back. So Brimbox maintains, I guess the point is, Brimbox maintains the last state you left a tab in. That's how it maintains state. You have to program for that, but it's easy to do in Brimbox, and so it will always maintain the last state you were in. Like here is the last state. So if you go from tab to tab, it maintains state. I'm going to talk a little bit. This is how Brimbox by default returns records. It's not exactly a row, and it's not exactly all in a column. It's sort of like this record, like what you would expect a record. And along the bottom of the record, we have these different links, and I've used a couple of them. The details, for instance, goes to the details tab, and these are action links that you can do different things with. And so these action links along here, you can edit, you can list, archive, delete, secure, and of course drill down, and you can drill down and add expense, or drill down to add records. So what we would do here is to add a relational record, or record related to a record. I'm going to go to the search. We would drill down and we would add an expense. And so what we're going to do, so this gives us what you would expect in a database, an input form, and this is customizable, of course. And so you take and you go here, and I'm going to use the Q tab, which is actually an inbox. So we have an inbox for the program, so you can send the database email, and I'm going to put some data in there, and we put the data in, and we go here, and it actually populates the form. There's this load data to form, and as what we notice is we go even before the form is inserted. If we go here and we use the tabs, it will actually keep the state of the form, so you can move around and things and navigate the database while it maintains state. And that's really important in databases. That's the whole issue, the whole crux of the problem. So what we do is we have one more thing I want to show you. So I've done the input tab. We inputted a record, and if we go back and we go to view, did I go here? We have the record showed up in the view tab. because it refreshed and the record's now there. And if we go, one more thing we can do is we can add records to a list. So if you go here and you go to list, which is an actionable, there's this automatically listing function. You can have up to 2,000 lists for a record by default, and that by default you can have 2,000 lists. That's a lot of lists. And you do that, you go to the list tab, and we go to dogs, and we find that we've added Bambi to the list. Next we have the report tab. And what we have in Brimbox is this is not a standard tab. It doesn't install standard. This has been standard just to show you what the reporting structure is. Brimbox makes, since you can set up the columns what you want, you can set up the layouts what you want, you can set up the database however you want to set it up. Brimbox does not do reporting by default. So you have to build it, and it's pretty easy. It has a reporting structure, it has a reporting modules, or I guess code, you would call it class. It's a class code, but you can just build the reports. Once you have the SQL built, the SQL you have to build yourself. We need no presumption of SQL. Brimbox is designed for a database programmer. You can just do the data. And one thing, Brimbox is a step above spreadsheets, but it's not a step beneath spreadsheets too. If you need to use a spreadsheet, you can just select the data and go back to a spreadsheet and get it right out. So it's very much a multi-user, it doesn't lock things and stuff. It's a Postgres database, so it has great locking functionality underneath, so it can be multi-user, but if you need a spreadsheet, you can use it. The setup tab is only available to super users, and you can manage drop-downs. That would be on the input form if you wanted. You see this as a drop-down if you wanted to manage that. You can do that with the setup tab. You can upload data. It has an automatically uploading data, and some of my clients have automatic feeds to it to just put their data in here. There's a documentation function, and this saves documents outside the file system. So if you have documentation, you can upload the file. And then it leads us to this query alias. And what Brimbox does, and I'm going to show you, is it stores all the data in one table. It's one self-relational, self-joined table. And so when you do a query, you have to specify the row type, and that's almost like making the table separate by specifying what we call row type. So I'm going to put a subquery in here, and I'm going to put animals, and we're going to call it animals, and you can have more than one subquery in here. We can go to number of subqueries is 2. Like if you were doing a join, you would want to alias the things to make it easier to the subqueries, because I recommend that you use subqueries. So we have this this query alias, and we can just go and we can use, once we have the queries aliased, we can use them just like tables, just like we would once we have the subqueries, and we can use them just like a normal database with tables. So except for you have to, of course, specify the alias, the database, the table alias. So we go here and we go to submit subquery, and we do that. And this is also using the reporting structure. This is a standard module, not a module, it's a standard class in there, the report class. So we can just do this table. So it actually builds the I run the subquery, I want to run the fill query. It actually builds using subqueries as the table. And so you can join if you had, a different, if you wanted to join, you would put 2 subqueries in there, and you would do a join just like you would. So that's how you would build queries in it. And I'm going to show you the table when we get to some of the other stuff. And then we go to the admin module. And we have the manage users. Of course, you can add a new users, and you can regulate by IP. It's positive regulation of IP. If you want this only on your intranet, and you do not want it on your externally available, then you can regulate all your logins to your intranet, and you can manage your log. There's a log functionality. Now I'm going to talk about the layouts for a second, because let's say we wanted to list the countries and some other data of what the dogs or the animals came from. We can set up a layout very easily. So we would do this, and I'm going to set up actually another child record. This is how quickly you can develop a child record and we're going to give it order 3. So the parent record is going to be animals, and I have that backwards. It's supposed to be country, and this is supposed to be countries. And that's a plural and singular thing. So you go to submit layouts, layout order. it has some good error checking. I forgot to put the order right. And so we go there, and all of a sudden we have this. You see it just automatically pops up. We have view country and add country, and you can view countries. There's nothing going to be there because we don't have any. So you can quickly add that. And columns is the same way. If you add columns, if you add column names, you can add it the same way. So we have countries here, and you can just fill in the columns, and automatically it sets it up. Of course, we have create keys. We're going to talk about manage module. Now, I want to show you how to install a module. So I'm going to put a module, and this is a module template that you can get from the website. It's in the repository too, and you just go to update install module, and all of a sudden the module appears. So you have this blank module. So this is where you can do anything you want to. You can set up reports there. One of the things that I've done for some of my clients is put an analyze button so they can analyze a record. You can put an analyze link in there and have it go to another tab. So you can just add a module or a template. Sometimes you need specific views or stuff. Whatever you need, you can just do it. It's customizable. And then the last is the backup and restore, and you can restore and backup files. And it shows, if you notice, you have restore tables and restores files. Brimbox actually has a file data type. If you look here, so you can actually save files in the database, and it's saved actually right here, column 47. It's a file type, and it's actually saved as a Postgres large object is how it does it. So that's an overview of the database. I want to talk about couple things more. Brimbox installs a lot like WordPress. It is comes in a zip file, and it doesn't install through Composer. It installs through Word, like you just upload the files to a directory and put in some configuration, and it installs. It installs the database, and it installs a lot basically like WordPress. And so it installs that way, and it is very lightweight. There are not massive libraries. I mean, you can always figure out how to hook up a massive library to it. But one of the things you're dealing with databases is you want the response time to be really quick. You don't want any heavyweight stuff on a database when you're doing it on the web. If there's a little slowdown, you want it to respond quickly. Okay, and then it is standard control panel thing. So this is many services now support, many internet ISPs support Postgres, and so right here we see Postgres and we see PHP admin, and right here we're looking at the data table. So I just want to show you this. So here's the row type 2, and here's mainly row type 1. So it comes with a standard set of rows. It's not extremely efficient for a database, but it looks like a lot like a spreadsheet with 2 different types of data. And so you can just, this is the data table, and you don't, Brimbox is designed to be, it's liberal with the database underneath it, because it's for small data solutions. It's liberal underneath, and you just have one data table. You may say, well, that causes self-joins and self-relation of joins, and how you think. Once you get used to self-joins, it's very easy, and it also eliminates the fact that you have a data structure with 10 different tables, and you're trying to figure out what the relation is. It's very simple parent-to-child relationships. There's also a way to do related tables in it too. Brimbox is well documented. I've built massive amounts of documentation in the hopes that it would be helpful, and so all the functions are documented. This is the standard, the functions right here. This is the standard object, the main object we call it in Brimbox, and that's how lightweight it is. That's all the standard functions that come with it. There's other documentation, and so finally, of course, there's a GitHub repository with this is a sample interface if you want to design an interface for some reason. This is the core. There's a data installer, which is helpful for migrating data. I've used that a couple of times as we roll out more installs. There's a sample template and a sample report. This gives you idea how to set up reports, and this gives you an idea how to build a module. So basically, that's an overview of Brimbox. Brimbox is open source, and it's designed to be open source, and so it's, you can customize it. And finally, it's also designed to work with hooks and filters, sort of like a typical content management system, so you can hook things in and stuff like that. But I guess in the end is what Brimbox is is it's an alternative to turnkey solutions. If you have some database where there's no turnkey solution, and this would be one way that Brimbox would be very useful to a programmer, if there's no turnkey solution and you're confronted by either keeping the data in spreadsheets, building a custom database, then Brimbox would be very useful. And it's also sometimes turnkey solutions have so much functionality that is never used or not wanted, and sometimes they don't do exactly what you want. Brimbox, you can really customize it to, if you need a particular look at the data or you need a particular report, it can be done. It's built, of course, in PHP on top of Postgres, and Postgres is very important because you have to build the queries. Brimbox doesn't have any. You write the you're going to write SQL if you're going to use it, and so it's very important. But I would also add that the PHP structure is very simple. It's not heavily class oriented. Object oriented, I would call it. It's not really heavily object oriented with a lot of different object relationships, if you want to call it something. It's very simple, and it's just basically you just put the PHP code in a module, upload it, and it will go. So that's an overview. I would appreciate any feedback that anybody has, or if you want to hire me, I will help you roll out installs and consult on it. Okay, thank you.